Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. And thank you to the Power Entrepreneur Group to have me on this afternoon. Wow, unprecedented times. Definitely something that in my own personal history, I don't have any recollection of the time that we're in currently. But even talking to people who have been around for a long time and looking at the history, I don't think there's been anything quite near similar to what we're going through today with COVID-19. Definitely, we're at a nexus. And I think that it's kind of one of those 9/11 moments in the respect to that was before and this is after. And what I want to do today is I want to focus a little bit about recognizing what it is that's going on and to use some of the tools that I talk about in my book, Moving Through Walls, and introduce the book a little bit, but talk a little bit about tools of maybe how we can become more successful and to deal with what is going on in all of our lives. And so hopefully some of these tools and some of this discussion that we have this afternoon is going to give you a little bit of food for thought. And the whole idea is to provide you with some motivation, inspiration, and some tools to work with in terms of the challenges that lay ahead. So first of all, Moving Through Walls is a book that is written by myself right here for a little bit of a plug, and it's available on Amazon. It's also available, I believe, in the US at Barnes & Nobles. In Canada, we launched at Indigo. It's available pretty well at any bookstore online that you like to shop at, and it's definitely available on Amazon. So if you kind of like some of the things that we talk about today, then go out and read the rest of the book and let me know what you think. And I always like to say thank you for joining the journey. So Moving Through Walls, the whole idea is exactly that. The title of the book that we came up with was the fact that there are these barriers in front of us, all these walls in front of us, and that we have a choice to make. We can either allow that wall to overshadow us, and we can kind of look at why we can't get through the wall and eventually kind of turn away and feel defeated, or we can actually look at every wall as an opportunity and look for that space within that wall to be able to move through that wall. And when I look back at well over 25 years as being an entrepreneur. And I wanted to be able to isolate down to what are the four characteristics, what are the four things that I bring with me into my life every single day that allow me to move through the walls. And as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure that anyone out there who's in business for themselves, whether you're in a small little business or whether you're in quite a large enterprise, there's always barriers. Every day you're triaging crisis, and it's all about crisis management. It's all about kind of thinking about new opportunities and ideas that come your way. And one of the things that we'll talk today a little bit about, we'll talk about the shift in what I call disruption that COVID-19, and there's, just like everything else, COVID-19 is a wall. And yes, there are people whose businesses are hurt. There are people whose employment prospects are right now not looking great. But that wall is also, there's two ways of seeing that wall. That you can see that wall as a barrier. You can see that as a destructive force, as a depreciator in your life, or you can see that wall as an opportunity. And while it might be very difficult to imagine where is the opportunity in this, you always have to think about the rear view mirror. So how when you're driving, you got a rear view mirror in your car. Always think about, one day I'm going to look through that mirror and I'm going to see what I've passed. I'm going to see what's behind me. And some of the techniques, some of the things that I use on a daily basis are all about being able to know that one day I'm going to look in that rear view mirror. And when I look in that rear view mirror, I'm going to want to say that I really proved myself to be successful at having passed that road, or I wasn't successful. It stopped me. I wasn't able to move forward. So again, back to moving through walls. What is it that I bring into my life every single day that allows me the attitude, the motivation, the inspiration, and the strength to move through those walls? So the first thing is openness. We I don't care who you are, you're going to be born with bias. You've got your parents, you've got your teachers, you've got your friends, you've got the society that you live in that is going to form your belief system. That belief system that you are born into and that is something that you evolve within, that belief system is a bias. And the bias means that your perception and how you view events, how you view ideas is going to be different than somebody who grows up in a different geographic place, in a different community, with different types of teachings. And so you might both see, if you take two people, one person is over here in, let's call it where you guys are from, Muncie, New York, and somebody else is in Paris, for example. You're going to look at the same event that you see, and you're going to make a judgment on what you are seeing. And perhaps that judgment is going to be very different because your perception, even though you're seeing the exact same thing, your perception is going to have a bias based on your belief system. And what I have talked about when I introduce openness as the first baseline, the first foundational base of being able to move through walls, is I talk about the ability to move past that bias, to move past that belief system, and to open up our minds beyond our bias. And to recognize, and to do that, you have to first recognize that I have a bias. And the most important thing about anything that I'm going to talk about is all about accountability and taking responsibility for how we see things. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to, the first thing is admission. And admission is, I have a bias. No question about it. There's nothing wrong with that. We all have biases because we all grow up differently. We all have different inputs into our personality and how we're going to go ahead and see the world. So that bias is creating a belief system. Now break it down. Look at it differently. Look at it fresh. What kind of biases do we have? We have biases by people's how they dress. Perhaps they dress differently than we're used to dressing. Perhaps they talk differently than we talk. Perhaps they're culturally different. Perhaps they have a different religion. Perhaps they have a different color to their skin. Whatever the case is, there's going to be differences. And anytime you have differences between people, you're always going to make a perceptive judgment. Now what you want to do is you want to kind of clean the slate. You want to open your mind. And the way to do that is by recognizing, yes, I have a bias. And the second part is I want to learn. I want to learn where you're coming from. So it's what I call the willingness and the acceptance to take action. The willingness to listen, the acceptance of what you hear as being someone's truth that could possibly now be indoctrinated into your truth, and the opportunity to take action on what you've now learned. You'll find that when you're open to ideas and possibilities, that suddenly a lot of doors start to open for you. Let me tell you the one person that you need to practice openness with more than anybody else. Yourself. You need to listen to that intuitive gut feeling. We've got a built-in radar within us that is telling us all the time things that we should be doing. I'm not talking about voices in the head that are telling you things that are damaging. That's a whole other story. I'm talking about the voices that the intuitive feeling that you just kind of know where to accept and where to act. That intuitive feeling is based on your own emotional health. Your emotional health is going to be based on other things that we're going to talk about. And I think that the most important thing about openness is the idea that we're not in control. And especially when you take a look now, COVID-19, you look at everything that's going around you, you realize, hey, one thing is, this is not about me. I am not the only person that is affected by this. And the second thing that comes to mind is that everyone is affected. And believe it or not, that should provide some comfort. because we're all in this together. But the idea of openness over here that I think applies is the idea of faith. And that's the next foundational concept that is something I bring into life with me every single day. The idea is that I'm going to be open to a belief system or ideas that I may have not thought about. I'm going to move beyond my confirmation bias. I'm not going to give into that dissonance of prejudging what I perceive. But one of the main things is I'm going to actually have faith. I'm going to have faith that I am not in control of everything that's happening to me, that there is a higher source than I am. There is something out there. There is a destiny. And I don't mean to get too existential over here with you, or this has nothing to do with religion. It's not about spirituality. It's about having faith. You can have faith in people. You could have faith in yourself. We're coming back to the idea of who do you need to be most open with? You need to be open with yourself. You also need to have most faith with yourself. I think that inherently people are good people. And I think that inherently we want to believe that everyone is telling the truth. Inherently, the idea is that all good things everything that's happening is happening for a good reason. I try not to get caught into this, what I call the control demon, where I need to know, I need to understand what is the next move, what is happening next. I need to understand where does my future lie. The idea is I kind of want to give up. I want to throw myself into like a space where I eventually dive off that diving board and know that the water is deep enough for me to swim and that everything's going to be fine. The key thing with faith is that you have to know that you've done your absolute best. And once that you've done your best, then it really is you've done everything you can. Now it's time to allow yourself the opportunity to allow fate in a way to intervene. And so faith is kind of a funny thing. It's really, you've got to be really open to the idea of knowing I've done everything that I can do. I'm a highly capable person. I've looked at my past successes. I'm highly grateful for everything around me. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm not in control of life itself. We can see what's happening right now. For me, the nexus date was March 15th, when suddenly everything just got closed down and all sorts of restrictions here and where I am in Toronto. And in our business, some of our businesses got really, closed down just overnight. I'm not in control of any of that. So I have to have faith that somewhere, somehow, we're going to learn from this. We're going to gain insight and things that we didn't know before that's going to help other things in the future. And I'm not just talking individually for myself, but I'm talking collectively, I'm talking globally, and there's a lot to learn. We're going to talk about that in a minute. One of the things that it requires faith is the idea of your future, believing in your future. And I find that this is something that people have a struggle with. They struggle with the idea of being able to visualize the future. You got to be able to visualize a future in order to have a future. Don't be afraid to dream. People say, oh, he's a dreamer. I love dreaming. I love sitting back in that sort of hypnagogic state between consciousness and sleep, where I'm just kind of dreaming about what I want in the life that I'd like to live, but also the ideas that I have and the vision I have for those ideas. Because what is an entrepreneur but an ideas man? And in order to be a true ideas man, in order to take something from an idea and be able to turn it into something of an action that can actually produce for you and pay your bills, you have to be able to employ openness, you be able to have faith, but you also have to be able to visualize that future. You have to believe in the future. The fourth foundational element that I take into me every day is actually one of the toughest concepts, and that is the idea of forgiveness. And I talk about that pretty extensively, and definitely quote. I talked to, in my research, I talked to a lot of Holocaust survivors, because I couldn't think of, how do people let go of a grievance of injustice that there really is no antidote for. And really, when we talk about forgiveness, we don't talk about the idea of excusing people. It's not okay if someone stole from me. It's not okay that they stole from me. There is no excuse. I'm not going to provide you with any kind of absolution over the fact of what you did to me. But I do have the choice of taking that grievance that I feel with regards to that injustice and not allowing it to consume me to the point that I can't function, but rather to say, I am going to allow myself to forgive not what was done, not to excuse what that person did to me, but rather to forgive what was done to me, the injustice that was visited upon me, because I need to clear it out of my head. And one of the things I talk about in the book is I talk about the idea of driving around a parking lot that says lot full, where we're trying to find a parking space, where you've got all these cars that when you look at them, they're covered in dust and that they've been there for a while. And wouldn't it be nice if someone would come along and just kind of tow those cars away? Well, that's exactly what grievances are about. And there's different types of grievances. I mean, there's people who lie and steal, but there's also, a much lower level of grievances. And the idea is to be able to acknowledge the fact that, yes, I have had an injustice visited upon me, and no, I do not deserve that. But the most important thing is to depersonalize it, to understand that that injustice that was visited upon you absolutely has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the person who perpetrated that injustice against you. And that's what you have to realize, because the most painful thing when there is an injustice is the fact that you feel that that injustice has been personally visited upon you. So these are the four things: openness, having faith, believing in my future, and doing my best to forgive by giving people benefit of the doubt, by empathizing with people, and by depersonalizing the injustices that are visited upon us. And the fact is that if we really wanted to, we could choose to feel the injustice every single day, because it can be as small as someone cutting you off in traffic. I recently read a book that when I was overseas a couple months ago, I picked up a book called The Last Lecture. If you can find this book, it's a great book. It's a difficult story. It's an individual who's a professor who got diagnosed with an incurable illness, eventually passed away. But he wrote this book called The Last Lecture, and there's just one piece that stood out for me. He was in a store and he realized that he paid, I don't know, he went to a self-checkout and he overpaid. He paid twice. It was like $30 or something like that. And the guy kind of thought about the time that he has left in life and just decided, it's not worth it. It's $30. At the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go to customer service. I'm going to have to sit there for 45 minutes trying to explain what happened. They're going to have to look it up. And my life is worth more than that. So the question you have to ask yourself when you feel a grievance is you have to ask yourself, what is your life worth? What is your time worth? And yes, absolutely, there's a grievance that's been delivered against you, but you've got to be able to figure out what is it worth for you to go ahead and to resolve that. And at the end of the day, it's very, very relieving, it's very liberating to be able to depersonalize these injustices and go away. So we've got openness, we've got faith, we've got future, and we've got forgiveness. Now you have the four foundations of finding greatness in your life. And if you take a look at the details of the book, and part one of the book deals with these four foundations in incredible detail, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy it, and I'd love to hear what you think. The second part of the book is actually dealing with different subject matters to do with my own personal stories, my own experiences over the last 25 plus years as an entrepreneur, dealing with the idea of confidence and dealing with purpose and dealing with my favorite chapter is Strength to Strength, where I talk about 6 lessons that I've learned in life. And these, the second part of the book is more anecdotal and more story driven. And hopefully you'll take from the book and you'll take from these stories and you'll take from the ideas and you'll make them your own. And that's the whole idea over here. The 4 foundations of living your best life, using these 4 foundations to move through walls every single day. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on, the elephant in the room. I'd like to talk a little bit about COVID-19. I'd like to specifically zone in on kind of the one thing that I think causes a lot of internal anguish inside, and that has to do with the idea of plans that get disrupted. You know, we've got to be a very optimistic. Humanity is extremely optimistic because if you think about it, everything to do with what we do in business and our social lives is based on planning for a future that we believe is going to happen. And that makes sense, right? If you want to go on a trip, you got to make a reservation. If you are having an event, you got to be able to plan the event months in advance. And that's fine. And that's what kind of makes us optimists. What we don't often account for is we don't account for what happens when life intervenes. Man tracht und Gott lacht. Man plans and God laughs. And I think we've all heard that, but it actually is a very deep kind of Yiddish proverb that no matter how well planned our future events are, there's always going to be twists and turns that are going to derail the best laid plans. And you know, my wife and I were decided to go on a trip, a worldwide trip, and we were going to go away for 3 months because our youngest had gone off to a program overseas. And so we had this, for the first time in over 25 years, we were like kids-free zone, and we had the opportunity to go away and to do these great things together. And we were going to work in our office in the Philippines, and we have another office in Europe. And so we were going to go ahead and do that work. And kind of a quarter of the way into the trip, everything just kind of blew up. And we had to fly back to Toronto. Our son's program got canceled. We had to bring him on a charter back here. And my other kids, we brought them home, and now what's happened is for the last 4 weeks, we've all been in this house together, and we've been spending all this time together. And actually, it's been a blessing. There's really a blessing. If you would have told me a year ago, would you like to take a month off and spend it with your kids and watch home movies with them and play Scrabble with them and have incredible long discussions with them and get to know them? I would have told you, wow, that's such a great idea. I'd like to plan for that. I'd like to make that happen. So really, I want to look at this as an opportunity that has been delivered to me, maybe not through the best of circumstances. But the fact is that by being grateful and feeling really, really grateful for what we have, it helps to get over sort of the anxiety of the chaos and the unknown. And that's exactly what's going on here. And that chaos and unknown is going to cause a lot of anxiety within each of us. And so, there's different practices that we can utilize in order to sort of get over that. One of them is what I talk about in my book, Moving Through Walls, and that is the prayer of gratefulness. The idea of being able to get up in the morning on your way to work, wherever you are, and to make this prayer, this idea that, hey, I'm really grateful for all the people in my life. I'm really grateful for the challenges that I have. I'm really grateful that I'm here to be able to manage all of that in my life. And there's such a difference in our attitude. We go from being defeated to being encouraged and motivated and inspired to be able to get to the next the next thing, next stage, next whatever's coming in life. We invest so much in planning. We plan, but life will always get in the way. There are simply circumstances that come up that are beyond our control, such as what we're experiencing right now, and our expectations are interrupted. And sometimes, these expectations that are interrupted can be wonderfully positive. Yes, serendipity plays her hand in your life. You meet somebody quite by chance that leads into an opportunity, and so on and so forth. But also sometimes our expectations can be met with sort of negative things where we really wanted something to happen. I really wanted to continue my trip, or I really wanted to, was planning on going away, or was planning to have this big party, or etc. I had all these plans for this, the business that I was developing. If we get stuck in grieving over that expectation, then we're going to allow that expectation that wasn't meant to drag us down. And the message that I want to be able to communicate today to anyone that's out there listening to this is recognize that you have a right to grieve over the loss that comes from that unmet expectation. It's okay. You're totally allowed to feel down about it. But the grievance that you feel has a date stamp on it. And you quickly must get back on that horse. And the way to get back on that horse is to look at yourself, to look at what's happened. And there's different techniques you can do it. You can say the words out loud. You can talk to a mirror if you want. It's okay. You can write down on a piece of paper and make notes. But what I want you to do is I want you to look at that unmet expectation. I want you to look on one side where you've got the grievance and you say, this is why I'm upset. But on the other side, I want you to talk about all the unexpected positive things that have happened. I want you to talk about everything that you feel grateful for. I got to tell you that more than feeling anxious about the unknown and the chaos in my life and for my business, of course, I'm worried about my income. I'm worried about what's going on, in terms of our safety and health. But actually, the overwhelming feeling is I'm worried about you. I'm worried about people who are less well off. I'm worried about people who don't have a house. I'm worried about to be able to, quarantine. I'm worried about people who've lost their jobs and they don't have any savings. And I'm really, really concerned about other people more so than I am myself. And when you do that, when you actually focus on being more concerned about people who might have less than you, there is a redemption quality in terms of being able to give. And you should really think about it during this time. What can I do to make their lives better? How can I? Because there's always going to be somebody that's worse off. So the first thing you want to feel this gratefulness, this incredible, wow, I'm blessed. Thank you, please. Thank you so much. But you also want to know, how do I help? All of these things are going to strengthen you, both emotionally and intuitively, so you can make the choices that you need to make in order to protect yourself and in order to really feel better about what's going on. So, the last several weeks have been perhaps the greatest test in our lives for most of us. I mean, our lives have changed in remarkable ways, and they've changed within such a short period of time. And my observation generally from looking at what's going on when I kind of take a step back is that humanity has really proven itself to be far more adaptable and fluid than any of us would have thought, was even possible just mere weeks ago. New norms are taking hold throughout every area of society, and the domino effect of the complexity of social distancing and legislative intervention into our daily lives is overwhelming to think about. Otherwise, flourishing businesses are forced to close. People aren't allowed to go to work, sudden loss of jobs, and the list goes on, the effects that affects every fabric of our existence and our lives. And like I said at the beginning of this webinar, is that we've hit a new nexus in our life, a new reference point, that time has changed everything. And I don't think that we're going to go back to a place where we were before. I think that actually things have changed. I did this whole idea of virtualization is becoming more and more accepted and more changed. There are terms that I'm hearing about that I never knew existed before. Not that they didn't exist, but that I didn't really pay attention to, like PPE and that type of thing. So definitely there's a new language. There's new social norms. There's going to be new technology. There's going to be plenty of opportunity, actually, that's coming in place. I, kind of sat down over the weekend, and I did a little bit of a diagram over here, and I do a lot of mind mapping and diagrams to kind of think about, sort of figure out where I need to go in terms of where the best opportunity is. And what I see is a lot of innovation happening. I see this sort of downturn, and this downturn, what it's going to do, is going to create this innovation and this growth that's going to happen. And you can be a part of that. You have to believe. So get over the grievance, get over the idea of your unmet expectations, and start thinking about, how can I fit into this new world order? And no idea is a bad idea. Best thing to do, what I always do, is I go to disprove my ideas before I try to prove my ideas. A lot easier to disprove an idea. But there is going to be disruption, tremendous disruption out there in the marketplace in order to fill the gaps and fill the void. And what you should be asking yourself right now is, how do I play a part in that? And you cannot ask yourself that effectively, and you cannot come up with those ideas if you're stuck in your grievances, if you're not going to be open to ideas that go beyond your belief system, if you're not going to have faith in yourself and the world around you and the universe, that this COVID-19, what's happening out there, is actually in some way is going to be a blessing for you. It's going to be a positive thing in your life. You just don't know it yet, but you have to have faith, and you have to have the idea that you're going to visualize a future in which you exist within this new world order. Finally, I really would like to just talk about, and finally in closing, and then I'll take questions, and would be more than happy to sort of have a little bit of interaction over here. But I would like to say that there's definitely a shift that has happened, and shifts are powerful. And there's a process that we go through. We go through this process. I'll tell you personally, for me, the first process was total disbelief in a situation. And the next feeling I felt was that this isn't just about me, but we're all in this together. And then there's sort of an acceptance process that goes on. And then there's this, okay, let's come up with ideas. What can I do? Where do I fit into this? What part do I play? And we've been working with various people within our organization and teams to come up with technology ideas. We've developed some marketplace software. We came up with an idea to do appointment setting for corporate environments like retail stores and hospitals, so they can limit the number of people that are coming into the contained area so that the social distancing can be respected. We're innovating. We're coming up with ideas, and then we're practically discussing, well, how best are we going to be able to take this to market? One thing I can tell you about taking things to market in a time of crisis is that the cost of taking things to market and the ability to take things to market are a lot more streamlined, because there is a need, there is a definite immediate need. And so people aren't as relaxed in terms of going through the same process they would go when you're trying to sell something to them that they don't need. So I'm sure that there is a lot of startups going on right now, and people who are listening to this are probably looking for inspiration. What can I do to get my idea to the marketplace? Believe in yourself, and believe that no idea, don't minimize your ideas, and don't believe it. And most of the things that I've been able to be successful with started out with the craziest of ideas. And if you read my book, you'll see a lot of the things that I went through that, just where serendipity plays its hand. But if I didn't start out with that idea and didn't believe in myself and have the faith that I was moving forward, I would have never been able to have achieved the things that I achieved. So don't put down any of those ideas. Have faith, be grateful for everything that you have, and know that this will pass. You're going to look in your rearview mirror one day soon. I don't think that this is going to continue in a long term. I think that eventually we're going to establish a new norm. We're going to come up with a way to be able to exist and coexist, and that things will start to pick up again. So please have the faith that's going to happen. Talk to people, express yourself, vent. Find people that you can speak to. We're, very, very much into human interaction. It's a very big part of our human experience, so we need to do that. Don't retreat into yourself. Please respect the social distancing requirements. Stay in your homes if you have to right now. There will be a time where we will get out, and this will all be behind us, and we're going to prove to ourselves who we really are during this time when the crisis really, really comes to that nexus point in our lives. But believe in yourself, and believe that you have a part to play in what's happening in the future. Thank you very much for listening to me. I think that's all for today. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to now open up the floor to any questions and answers, and I'll just turn it over to our narrator.
That was really amazing, Israel. Really appreciate it. Okay, so we have our first question from Shlomi Chaim. How can one pursue their purpose when they can't do it now job-wise?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to call you SC. And I'm going to ask you a question that you have to ask yourself. Is the job that you currently are in or that you do not have anymore, did it really fill your purpose? Was it a purposeful part of your life, or was it just fulfilling the need to be able to bring in some cash flow? So did it just fulfill a need? And was it something that you were just kind of dreading going 9 to 5? Maybe this is, and I don't know the answer to that, but maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe this is a kick in the pants, a unforeseen opportunity for you to go do something different with your life. Purpose is really about how we feel. We know when we're being purposeful about something. Be honest with yourself in terms of how you're feeling in your purpose. But this might be an incredible opportunity to actually change your life and to actually do something that you really want to do instead of being stuck in something you didn't want to do. Purpose has nothing to do with the fact that you were working before and now you're not working now. Have faith that that whatever it is that you're going to do now that necessitates your sustenance and survival. The saying is that necessity is the mother of invention. I guarantee you that, and I don't know anything about your situation, so I don't want to be presumptuous in any way, Shalom Chaim, but I can almost guarantee you that if you now stop grieving about what you've lost, but instead look forward to what this opportunity affords you to achieve, you will find a purpose that was destined for you. And looking back, you'll realize that all of this could have been a very positive thing for you.
All right, wonderful. We have another question by Joey Kest. How can we reinvigorate passion when external circumstances prevent it otherwise?
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. Right now, things can look extremely bleak, and it depends on where you are within what is going on. I can give you examples and things that I see on the news that are very depreciating and very demoralizing in terms of being able to answer the call. But I'll tell you kind of what I feel the answer is, or what I do. For those of you that normally go to synagogue, it's unfathomable that our synagogues, our churches, our places of worship are closed down, because it really is a fabric of our lives. And I think that it's very easy to kind of give up on what we believe in. It's very easy to give up on tradition and culture and what have you, because when you don't have community and you don't have the things that make it supportive, it's easy to let it go. Let me tell you something. When something becomes easy to let it go, do not fall into that trap where you follow that path of least resistance, because that is the time for you to find your strength. And I can tell you that on a Saturday morning, I will be in my living room and singing and recreating a shul experience, and my kids are hearing it. And it's an example that said, and I'm feeling actually more inspired by the fact that I'm going out of my comfort zone, and I'm doing something that I may have not done before. Every time you go out of your comfort zone and you do something that is contrary to the path of least resistance, you will accumulate strength, and that strength that you accumulate will create a momentum in your life, and that momentum is going to lead you to where you're meant to be. So yes, it's depending on where you are. I don't want to be presumptuous to say yes, it can be very demoralizing, and you can feel very depreciated, and you can feel like people have said to me, oh, the world's coming. No, this is not the end. This is just a shift. It's all about your attitude, and the attitude is the most important thing. So do things that are going to increase the health of your attitude, and you'll find the momentum is going to change. You'll feel this shift within you. That's just, it's magical almost. And what you want to do is you want to believe, you really want to believe that anything is possible. What is happening to you, anything, any barrier, any wall that's in front of you is an opportunity for you to grow as opposed to losing it. We've got to be very strong right now to hold on to the traditions and the culture of our beliefs, especially when we don't have the support of our community. You alone can feel that you are the protectorate and you are the individual. It's all up to you, that you are walking in there as a leader, and you must, and if you don't do what's uncomfortable, in the sense of, if you allow your depreciation to overtake you, then you will lose this battle. Don't lose the battle. You're going to get strengthened, and you're going to come out the other side a much stronger person for it.
That was also a wonderful piece of advice. Okay, we have another one from Howard Pearl. What advice would you give for writing a book or ebook?
Oh, wow. Okay. Howard, think about a story that's going to change the world, and make yourself a commitment that you're going to do something. It's okay to talk about things that you commit to and things that you dream about, because sometimes when we talk to other people about it, we gain more perspective, we gain good ideas. A lot of people tend to want to keep things to themselves. Sure, if you talk about a lot of things that you're planning on doing to enough people and to the same people, and you never come through on it, you are going to lose credibility. That's the risk that you take. I find that when I have an idea about a project, that I do talk about it with people, because I want to hear what they have to say. I'm ready to listen and accept, and I really am looking for a diversity of ideas. I got to tell you, before I wrote my book, I really came up with the idea. Now, I'm the type of person that when I come up with an idea, I gotta do it. I gotta do it because it's a challenge, and I find that it just gives me strength. Every time I do something and I achieve something, it gives me a momentum of strength, and I love taking things to the finish line. Taking things to the finish line is actually the most important accelerator in your abilities that you can do. But if you're really intent on writing a book, just start writing it. Think about sort of the ideas, and then just throw all these ideas out there, and then start to connect the ideas and try to structure yourself. There are some courses and some people that you should listen to on Masterclass that could help you a little bit with that. And definitely feel free to email me and ask me for any advice. I talked to a lot of people when I was writing my book, and I asked for advice of people who had written books to ask them how I could structure it. I will tell you one little secret: write your last chapter first. And then what happens is that these are your conclusions. So a lot of people try to figure out, they get caught into, how do I write that first word of that book? How do I start off that paragraph? When I'm writing a speech or I'm writing something, I'm always thinking about when I'm finished with what I have to say, what I want that to look like. And then I take that idea, I look at the conclusion, and then I rebuild it from there. So that's a little trick that you could use.
Awesome. We have our last question. This is from Anonymous. What is your number one tip for staying confident in this economy when it comes to job searching and interviewing? In parentheses, I just lost my job. That's why I'm asking.
Sure. So first of all, you're not alone, and it can be, really scary to lose a job and to, be thrown into, back into that marketplace, especially now. So I'm an entrepreneur. I've never really worked for anybody but myself, and that was my choice. But definitely when I interview people, I'm looking for measured confidence, for people who are going to add value to our organization. I'm looking for people who know what they're talking about. I don't know what your level of training or skill set or sort of what you bring to the table. So I can't really talk to that. But what I will say is this. I will say that if you're feeling defeated, then that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you'll bring that sense of defeat into your conversations. So the first thing that you have to do is you must get over that feeling of being defeated. And the way that you do that is by recognizing everything in life that you have to feel grateful for, by getting rid of those grievances, and by believing that you have a future. And I want you to dream about your future. I want you to dream about what it is that you'd like to do. The second thing is really to think about what you feel purposeful about. Don't give up your skill set. Don't give up your energy to somebody who's not going to appreciate you. Find somebody who's going to appreciate you, because even though I know that in the short term you need to go out there and get a job, but then you might be trading what you had before for another jail term. Okay. Look at this as an opportunity. This is an opportunity. What is happening to you is happening to you for a reason. If you follow your purpose, if you follow what you're passionate about, if you go after things that inspire you, then you will always be the best at who you are and who you can be in the position you're doing. So don't go after stuff for the short term. Go after things think long term. And finally, when you are sitting down in front of somebody, do your research. Find out who they are. Don't try to oversell them. Just make sure that they know that you're prepared. I like when people come and speak to me, I like to know that they know who they're talking to. I do not like BS, and I like straight talkers. And I like to know that this is how this person is going to bring value to the table. They're going to make my life easier. They're going to add value to what I'm doing. I don't necessarily need to be, I don't like to feel flattered by people. I need reality. I need to know that they're going to take me out of the weeds and they're going to support me. Make people feel when you interview with them, and this, this time right now, make them, give them the sense of confidence, give them the sense that you are going to support them and that you can do the job. One more thing. Right now, finding a job is probably going to be, I'm not going to say a futile effort, but we are in a reality of a situation today where there's going to be this gap. And the gap is that there are some companies that might be looking to hire that are in a disruption of an industry that is servicing sort of as a need for COVID-19, and please go after that. But if you find that you're in this gap where there's nothing that you can do about it, then accept there's nothing I can do about it for this period of time, and say to myself, I'm going to take the next 2 weeks. I'm going to take the next 4 weeks. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to get healthy emotionally. I'm going to adjust my attitude. I'm going to do things that I wouldn't have normally done. If you chase things because you're desperate to find them, things will repel. They will move away from you. But if you go after what is good for you, and if you allow the universe to deliver to you what is meant to be, you'll find that in pursuit of bettering yourself, that you will fall, that serendipity will play its hand. You will fall into what it is that you're looking for. Let things find you rather than you work in desperation to find it. I hope that helps.
That was really amazing. Israel, thank you so much for really taking the time out of your so busy day to really add us tremendous value at this time. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, and I'd like to invite anyone to come to israelellis.com to leave comments. I do answer emails, and definitely am always happy to guide, if you will, and to provide some thoughts and some inspiration. So feel free to do that. And thanks very much for having me. And I hope that everyone out there stays healthy and safe. And anybody that is listening that is in the front line right now, I want to thank you very much. There's a lot of unsung heroes. They aren't always obvious. Even the simple idea of calling up a neighbor and seeing how they're doing, or smiling at people in the street and saying, hi, how are you? And talking to them from a safe distance, of course. It really is like a tremendous act of humanity, and it's through our acts of kindness and through doing things for other people that we're actually going to find redemption for ourselves. So please go out there and do that, and thank you very much if you are doing that. And we're a global community here. We're all in this together, and this will come to pass. It will and will be better for it.